So we live in a world where black boys, black men are consistently gunned down. The cause of gun violence in our community remains unsolved, judicially unsolved. But any random person walking the streets of Chicago, or South Shore Chicago, or Roseland, Chicago, or Inglewood can give you a bit of insight on the cause of gun violence in black community. So today, I want to review something that I came across a while back. There's a guy, he did a TED Talk on gun violence. Specifically black gun violence. And it's kind of disturbing. This white male, named White Mike, stands as an ally to the black community. And he has an interest in following black gun violence or being a solution or being a voice of anti-gun violence. And I'm just going to allow him to speak to you guys as I provide a little commentary about from like my specific perspective, as I think that like there's value in hearing it from an outsider. So here we go.
The only people on the radio that talk about how great it is to kill each other are black. How come that exists? 15 stations on a dial, go up, go down. The only people on the radio bragging about getting automatic weapons, gunning each other down are black. This right here is a song. My pastoral vocabulary won't let me read the title. But I read this. Catch a young black male not paying attention to the red light with your AK-47. Let me see you shoot it. You're a killer, you're a killer, you're a killer. You're a killer black male. Let me see you prove it. Why does this exist? I'll take it even further because a lot of times racism exists in what we don't know, we don't see. Where are the white killers on the radio? Where are the white AK-47 shooters? Where are the white drug dealers? Where are the white people on the radio that brag about what it's like to murder witnesses before trial?
So this is interesting, as I recently moved to Texas, and I started listening by association. There's people around me that listen to country music, actually black folks. So I started listening to country music. And I'm hearing these love songs. I'm hearing songs about farming. There's this song by some guy called Buy Dirt. And it's all about like finding the one you love. You can't buy these emotional things, or you can't buy happiness, but you can buy land. And like, that's what you do. I mean, it's a really, really cool song, really cool messaging. And I asked, I was like, are there any country songs that talks about like shooting someone or like gun violence at all? I mean, there's people talk about their shotgun and hunting or something, but none of them were able to give me an example of a country song that promotes gun violence. So it's pretty interesting, but here we go.
And the question is why? Why don't they exist? Do white people not kill people? Do white people not use AK-47s to shoot each other? I mean, we know, do white people not do drugs? Do they not deal drugs? Of course they do. But why is it that it doesn't make it to our mainstream radio? Why is it that we don't hear it hundreds of times a day in hundreds of cities across the nation, thousands of plays that say the idea that a black guy would kill another black guy is something to be celebrated, something to be romanticized? And why is it the white people don't do it? And maybe it's because there's no white audience for it. Or maybe it's because it's not really marketable. Maybe because it's not, can't get sponsors. I don't know why it is. Or maybe it's because it's just not the white man's role. Or maybe when white people get up and talk about being drug dealers and AK-47 killers, maybe it's even sicker than that. Maybe when white people do it, they're accused of acting black. The truth is, in America, black murder is normal. Black murder is normally.
So, like, that's a really, really interesting, like, point, right? Like, why could, like, Clear Channel or Hirsch, like, Hirsch controls magazines and publishing. Clear Channel controls radio stations. Um, why aren't they putting violent country songs on the radio? Right? Why? Personally, I know why. Because it just doesn't sell in that community. That's the argument that they'll say, because it always boils down to profits, right? What keeps people interested? And right now in the black community, gangster songs, gangster music, violence, drugs, women, that's what keep people listening to the radio. That's the songs that they've been playing for our children or for our culture for a very, very long time. And we all know that repetition creates a following. You hear something enough, you start to like it. No matter what. You eat something enough, you start to like it. Right? I've been recently experimenting with like natto, which is a slimy, like it looks disgusting. But the more times I try natto, the better it becomes. It doesn't matter. The first time you tried beer, did you like it? I don't know many who did. But the more you drink it, the more delicious it becomes, right? And it's funny because the more you drink beer, the more you start appreciating the worst parts of beer, the bitter, right? The chocolate malts, and you move on to like IPAs or stouts, where like a new drinker will taste an IPA and be like, oh, that's disgusting, or they'll take a taste a stout and be like, oh, that's disgusting, but they'll drink the little watered down Bud Light. It's no difference. The more exposure you have to something, the more you like it. So right now, our culture is a fan of hip hop music and violent music because it's been pushed down our throat via their messaging. Because we could have went super hip hop and stayed listening to like empowering music, right? If they would have blasted Nas all over the radio and Nas was hot, that would have been different. If they would have blasted Kendrick Lamar in his early days all over the radio, we won't have this issue. But no, they blast Lil Boosie. They blast Chief Keef. They blast, Migos and etc. People who put out fairly negative messaging. So just something to think about.
Black woman to be involved in a homicide, either as a perpetrator or victim, is so common, so broadly accepted that it basically goes unnoticed. The truth of the matter is, black families are affected by homicide at rates of 10 times their white counterparts. There will be more death in the form of homicide involving black people this year than any other form of violence that dominates our national conversation. More than school shootings, mall shootings, mass shootings, workplace shootings, lovers' trysts that turn violent and bloody, even more than in war and in terrorism. No one will lose their life at greater numbers than black Americans involved in violence. Now, when you talk about what's going on in one segment of society and somehow tie it to what's going on someplace else, you kind of lose people, they detach. This is our unknowing. Prejudice, discrimination, and racism are not the same. We know prejudice, it exists in human hearts and minds. Discrimination exists in hands and policies, but racism is neither in hearts and minds, nor is it really in policies. As a matter of fact, it doesn't take action to keep racism going, it takes inaction. It doesn't take hearts and minds to keep racism going. It actually has to keep things out of people's mind. Racism is like the millstone that churns along in the background. It just goes generation in and generation out and keeps turning out the same generational outcomes. Racism is like the nicotine stains left on the walls after the smoking tenants move out. They take the couch, they take the clock, they take the picture, but the evidence that they've been there still remains.
So this is very interesting because this is what we're talking about when we're talking about like systematic racism and like generational wealth, right? As he said, like the stains still remain. Like the stains still remain, right? No matter how much you clean up, right? If no matter how much if you don't go into that house and scrub those walls and remove everything that was left behind by that smoker, not just their clothing, not just their beds, not just their physical things. If you don't actually go in and deep clean the harm from those carpets and from those walls, the remnants of a smoker are still there, and a new person can walk into that apartment and leave smelling like smoke. That's systematic racism. We have had generations of laws and culture that has made racism embedded in America or in the capitalist ecosystem. So even when we say that, like, even when we legalize marijuana or legalize cannabis, there's generations of black boys, of people of color in prison. So you can't just legalize it and be like, oh, it's illegal now, we're doing a good thing. No, you have to go in and wash away all that dirt and all that damage that you've done. And that's what we're dealing with. So when we're talking about systematic racism, we even when we're tapping that wealth, the conversation of wealth, a lot of wealth is generational. Trump didn't become a billionaire by himself. His father passed on stuff. His grandfather passed on stuff. That's what happens. Farmland in Texas, generational. That's what happens. So no matter what, when we're talking about systematic racism, we have to continue. We have to think about how those stains still remain. Let's get back to the video.
Being normal. I'm talking about the combination of commonality and palatability. Black murder in our country is not only common, it's not only frequent, but it's an idea that we celebrate. It's an idea that we say is okay. We actually make heroes out of the notion, heroes out of people that trivialize and romanticize it. How common is black murder? Well, in some demographics in the United States, it's very common. According to the CDC, they release a report every year called the LCOD, leading cause of death. And every year, it's been this way year in and year out for the past decade, as far back as they list on their site, black males ages 15 to 34, the number one cause of death is homicide. The number one cause of death. For white males, it's number 3. And when you hear that, you instantly go, well, yeah, that would seem right. I hear of black on black crime, right? Hear about urban crime. So I guess, yeah, number 1 to number 3, it's a problem, but it's really not that bad. But the devil is always in the details. The truth of the matter is that if I were to take everybody that dies in this year, every black male 15 to 34, and I brought them into a room December 31st, said, all of you have made it to the afterlife. And I want to take a quick survey. How many of you got here by cancer? A few voices would say, me. How many of you got here by auto accidents? Me. How many of you died of a heart attack on an athletic field? Me. And I said, how many of you were gunned down by another human being? And half the room would raise their hands. And every time I showed this information, people always say, well, if the number 3 cause of death for white males, what is the number 1 cause of death? And without fail, year after year, it's called unintentional injuries, accidents, falling off a four-wheeler, crashing a go-kart, or bungee jumping without paying attention to, knots and things like that. And so basically, the American story is white kids are dying because they're clumsy, and black kids are dying because they're gunned down. Chicago, just like New Orleans, just like Jacksonville, just like Little Rock, how common is black murder? The past 3 years, there's been about 1,270 victims of homicide, 2012, all the way up to this week in 2014. And of those victims, 64 were white. Now, this transcends the simple diagnosis that we have. Well, it's education, it's poverty, it's family structure. As you study it locally, nationally, as you study it decade after decade, it doesn't follow any of those easy answers. Something much deeper and much darker is at work. How common is black murder? Well, in my entire life, 1973 to 2014, there has never been a year since I've been breathing that blacks have not been overrepresented in homicide. Never been a year that you can go into a morgue and you don't see blacks overrepresented. It's the story of America. It's certainly the story of America in my lifetime. My question is, what will be the first year that we see it a 1-to-1 ratio? If it's somewhere between 7-to-1 and 10-to-1 now, when will it be 1-to-1? We would consider it a huge national victory if we ever got it to 5-to-1, to 4-to-1, to 3-to-1. Violent crime has gone down over the past 40 years. People say, isn't that great? No, because prison has gone up over the past 40 years.
Now, this is a very important point as well. 9/11 killed roughly 3,000 people. 3,000 people. 9/11. Every year, close to 10, at least in 2020, close to 10,000 black men, close to 10,000 black folks were killed with gun violence. 10,000. The war in Afghanistan, because they attacked America and killed 3,000 people, they spent $3 trillion as a response to killing 3,000 people. If we just extrapolate that out, 3 trillion to 3,000, that means every year the government, if it was all else equal, be spending $10 trillion on fighting black violence. But no, I say this, I know it's irrational, but I say this as a follow-up or as a prequel to what he's going to say, that black murder is normal. It's so normal that it doesn't even justify a response. Think about that. Black murder is so normal that it doesn't justify a response.
Crime has gone down, or prison has gone up. What's never closed is the gap. There's always that gap, 6 to 1, 7 to 1, 8 to 1. Usually it's the smartest person in the room at this point that yells out from the back, "So are you saying you want more white people killed?" And then all of a sudden I realize that's why we die in clumsy accidents. All right, here we go. Now, the real question is, why is this going on? Why is this the story of my life? Why is this the story of my country? And everyone in this room falls into one of two categories. You're in one of two categories. Either there's something wrong with them, some core deficiency in black people are just prone to violence, and we use anecdotal evidence to talk about that, or there's something wrong with us. And depending on what category you fall in, if there's something wrong with them, you point fingers. You need to do something. If you say there's something wrong with us, then you roll up your sleeves and you get busy. Well, the truth is there is something wrong with us. And then this years ago, we set off a bomb. And then that bomb affected our cultural soil. It affected our definitions. It affected our expectations. It affected who we are, how we describe ourselves, and how we describe other people. What we believe down to the core of our being. It's in our air. It's in our cultural water. And it's passed down from generation to generation. Now, again, it would take me a few TED Talks to really get into this. But the bomb is about lies. It's about deep lies. One of the lies is that blackness is somehow associated with criminality, sexual deviance, and violence. That when you come across blackness, that inherent in being black, there's some sort of deviance, violence, and criminality associated. And that's a derivative.
Now, that is deeply ingrained in the world. I mean, black cats represented black magic. Right? If something's negative, think about Disney movies. The evil person wears black. Black is associated with death. What do people wear at funerals? Negativity is associated with black. Not naturally. These are false realities that we've created as a culture. Not everywhere not every place around the world wear black to funerals. Not every place around the world think black cats are negative. Strongly Western influence. Some people wear red to represent life. Some people wear white to funerals. Some people just wear normal clothes. But in the West, black represents evil. But in reality, we know that black is the last place you should be looking for real evilness in this world.
That somehow black life is inferior to white life, that the value of it is less. That if you were weighted in the scale, the black life just weighs a little less. If you were trying to cash in on the street, you'd get a little less money for it. And these are essential these are the lives that help build our nation, help build the Western world. And here's what's interesting about this, is these lies are not only lies we've told about black people, but told to them. I was in an unsolved homicides meeting here in Jacksonville last year, 1,100 unsolved homicides. I was there with families. They were having a conversation with our sheriff's department. And on the walls were all the pictures of the victims. You already know the vast majority of the pictures were of black residents of Jacksonville. There were white families there, certainly. And I'm not trying to say that it doesn't happen among the white community. Of course it does. But I'll never forget a mom interrupted the detective. She said, "Excuse me, I have a question." He said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "I know you don't know who killed my daughter, but I have a more important question." He said, "What is that?" She said, "When you picked my daughter's body up off the side of the road," she said, "how did you do it?" He said, "What do you mean, how did I do it?" She said, "Well, did you pick her up? And then did you set her on the gurney? And did you zip her up in the bag? Did you slide her in the back of the van? And did you shut the doors gently?" She said, "Or did you just pick her up, slam her down, zip her up, and put it in?" She says, "I want to know how you treated my daughter's body when you picked it up off the ground." She said, "Did you treat it like you would treat a white man's daughter?" That's a very interesting question. As though a mother doesn't have enough to deal with, she also has to wonder that when the people working the crime did they work it as somebody's personal, precious life was solved? Or is it just another dead black kid on the street? Another mother popped up. She said, "Yeah, I know you don't have the answer to who killed my son." He says, "Ma'am, you know I would call you if I had. I want to call you." She said, I don't need a phone call." She says, "But I do need to know that you pay attention to it. And I do need to know that my son's death matters. And here's why. Because she sees the files on his desk in her mind. And she sees the stacks in her mind of dead black kids. And she sees the stacks of little white kids. She just wants to make sure that in the common thing that happens all the time, that her son's life is just as precious as everyone else's. Black murder is normal. I mean, when I talk about it, none of you are really shocked. Most of you can say, "Well, I didn't know it was that bad." Which brings up the real question about palatability. Are we comfortable with it being like this? Are we comfortable? I'm 41 years old. Are we comfortable with living in a nation where this goes on? Well, if we're not comfortable, if we're not okay, are we appalled and outraged? And when I say we, I mean we. Are we appalled and outraged? That's the question. There are certainly people all over the country doing something about it, but when I discovered that them doing something about it is totally different than we doing something about it.
Now, I feel this way about everything. I think if you're not taking action, then you're part of the problem. I think, I'm not religious, but I'm gonna speak about something that could be construed as a promotion of Christianity or something, right? But I am not super non-religious. But one of the greatest thing that Christianity has done, same thing with Mormons, is create the belief that if you aren't spreading the message of Christianity or Jesus or Mormonism, then you're not a Mormon, right? If you're not actively prophetizing or whatever, prophesizing, then you're not a Christian. I mean, Mormons have to actually go on, 2 years of actually prophesizing. That's how you get all the Mormons around the world. So I feel that if you have a problem with something, you should be a part of the solution. And this is why I take the stance that a lot of cops aren't doing, a lot of cops aren't actually good. Because I'm going to tell you this. If my entire family is known as racist, and I'm the only non-racist, I'm going to it's going to be my duty to ensure that I get rid of all the racism in my family. If I walk into a house and I'm non-racist and my father is hanging a swastika sign, I will be the person to say, take that swastika sign down. I'm speaking from third party. If you're a little white girl and your father walks and you walk in the house and there's a swastika sign, you have to be the person to say, stop, take that down. That's harmful to a large group of people. that doesn't mean what you want it to mean today. The meaning of that flag has changed. So if you're a cop and you know that your buddies are blue and operating by code blue, it should be up to your duty to set them straight.
A lot of things that you have to understand is this about racism. And when I talk about prejudice, discrimination, and racism, the answer lies right here. It wouldn't seem like the answer is here, but if you want to know how comfortable we are with black murder, you just got to look at the marketplace. When you see this photo 1 week after Dr. King won the Montgomery bus court case, and they decided to eliminate the racist policies and the discriminatory policies. This is his picture. It was a great victory. And you know about the prejudice, you know about the discrimination, but right here on the front of the bus is the racism. Because racism exists in the unchecked and the unchallenged normal.
So this is interesting again, because it still happens today. When you see advertisers on Fox or CNN, I don't really know which political side they are, but you see like the extreme, like far right media, right? When you see far right media and there's ads on the far right media in these channels, they are supporting this far right media. That is what we need to truly understand. Coca-Cola was able to put signs on the bus because it was normal. It was normal to hate black folks. It was normal. All they wanted to do was make money off of it. That's all they wanted to do. And if you look around you and you think about where is Walmart advertising? Who are they supporting? What campaigns are they donating to? Where's Nike advertising? What is Nike using? Right? You think about like Nike's sweatshops in Asia. What does that represent? But it's normal, so it's okay. A lot of things that's happening today is illegal, but immoral. But it's normalized. Normalcy should never be the guiding principle of life. Morality should.
60 years later, what in the world is a Pepsi ad doing on the front of a bus company that makes black people sit in the back? What in the world is it doing there? I mean, did the Pepsi CEO look back on that today and go, yeah, that was a fail. Shouldn't have done that. Are they ashamed? Are they ashamed that they would? Well, let me ask you this. Could they do it today? If I started a bus company in Jacksonville and said, I got this great thing, beautiful buses, I want Pepsi's name on it. They said, let's do the deal. I said, but the deal is gays, blacks, and Jews sit at the back. They couldn't put their name on that. Why? Because as American attitudes change, as American definitions change, as American norms change, guess who else has to change? The marketplace. There's certain things they could get away with when that type of thing was normal that they can't get away with now. The same thing not only goes with policy, it goes with entertainment. My favorite cartoon, one of them all time, is Tom and Jerry. This is Mammy Two Shoes. Mammy Two Shoes, you never saw her except for a couple of times above the knees. She was always the one yelling at Thomas the cat for what he was doing. She was voiced by Lillian Randolph, a great radio actress. But here's the interesting thing. White entertainers create white entertainment. They carve out a black role, and the black role that they saw fit was to play this stereotypical black woman. That lasted up until in the early 50s. Then huge protests broke out, and they said, you know what? We don't want to be portrayed like that anymore. And to this day, if you want to watch Tom and Jerry, you go home, you want to watch it on Netflix, you want to watch it on Amazon, this comes up on the screen. It says, what you're about to watch contains some racial stereotypes. They were wrong then, and they're wrong now. They were commonplace. We don't want to edit her out because that will make it like it never happened. We're going to put her in, but know that we know there's something wrong with this. Now, we don't have Mammy Two Shoes today. You can't get away with it. Nobody would put it out there. But we do have black people that get on the radio every day in white-owned companies, white-owned stations with white-owned sponsors that play the role of hypersexualized, hyper-criminalized male. I ask these advertisers, I say, I've got hundreds of songs a day that celebrate killing animals. Will you put them on your station? They said, no. I got hundreds of songs a day that talk about assaulting women and abusing kids. Would you put them on your station? They said, no. I said, I got hundreds of songs a day that talk about murdering blacks. Would you put them on your stations? They said, well, that depends. Depends on what? Who it's done by and who it's branded for. Because if we can get black folks to sing about it, we can brand it for our youngest black audiences, I think there's money to be made. I think there's American appetites to see these people that way.
So, if you see the point of this TED Talk, and as he elaborated on this conversation with advertisers, there's money being made off the murder of black boys. Look, we cannot say the F word on the radio, but you can literally talk about shooting and killing a stranger. We can't, say sexual terms on the radio, but we can talk about doing drugs. Not normal drugs, like hard pills. But then we wonder, and this is what kids are consuming daily, consistently, all day. High schoolers have Bluetooths that just play ratchet music all day long. But why? Because the idea that this is their music. There's a black face there, but that black radio station's owned by white. The radio station's owned by white people. Its agents are white folks. The presses that those or the distribution of is controlled by white folks. In fact, I think UMG, one of the biggest hip hop promoters or production distribution company, is I think the majority is owned by French or something, the French and Chinese or something like that. So they've given our culture this music, and then because there's a black face behind it, we think it's ours. And now they're giving us men dressed in quilts, right? Now they're giving us hypersexualized men. They used to just be hypersexualized women, which is absolutely wrong. But now they're giving us hypersexualized men. And then they're saying that it's okay for the 12-year-olds or 14-year-olds to listen to the music. It is not our music. In 10,000 people, 10,000 black bodies are being killed with gun violence on a year-over-year basis. That should have deserved a response. But that $10,000 is that 10,000 bodies is worth it for the tens of billions of dollars they're making off of hip hop music, hip hop clothing, hip hop music, hip hop movements, concerts, the tens of billions of dollars. 10,000 bodies means very little. So be aware that a lot of the things that's in black culture that we think is black culture, it's not. It's being force-fed to us. Conscious. Make your own decisions. Find what you actually like. Maybe it's country music. Who knows? But hey, like and subscribe. That's all I got for you today. That entire TED Talk is available online if you want to continue watching. It's probably another like 7-8 minutes to that TED talk. But I think we got the point across. Be aware that a lot of the damage that's happening in Black communities is tied to capital. It's tied to profiteering. It's tied to that. Guns are sold in our community, or sold to our community, only because there's profit to be made. Drugs are in our community because there's profit to be made. Alcohol is in our community because there's profit to be made. Churches are in our community because there's profit to be made. So, till the end, hey, like and subscribe. Love to have this conversation with you guys. Comment in the comment section. Let's get this talk started. And until next time, peace and blessings.